are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
We think we're back. Hang on. I think we're back. All good. I think we're good. I think for those at home, I think you can hear us now, which is good. We really do apologise for those who have been listening on the live stream. Had a bit of an issue out the back, which we have sorted out now. A bit of gremlins in the system is one way to put it, as one former FNR alum put it back in the day, Lachie, but we're back on board. So what we're going to say is, if you did miss most of that Avondale Port Meloburne chat from last night, head over to the podcast later on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get it, to catch up on that opening bit, because we do believe at least it should have gone through in the history archives.
Yeah, it'll 100%.
Yeah, it should all be there. But nonetheless, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap up that chat. Let's summarise it in a short bit, just for those who have been watching
basically,
at home.
I was praising what an excellent performance that Port Meloburne had in this game. Avondale obviously were coming off that not short turnaround, but difficult turnaround, being a semi-pro side, playing away from home, hot conditions, even though it was an easy game against Mindel Aces. And I think they looked second best. Port Meloburne were playing really well. And then I was praising the work of Luca Tavia, who got the opening goal. It was a class finish. He had the ball played to him on the edge of the box, and he could very easily have just sort of fired away a first-time shot. But he recognised the presence of a defender nearby. I think it was Scott Hillier. Checked inside, shifted the ball back onto his preferred foot, and then a great finish past Tom Yonkman, who had no response. And I do think that he exemplifies, the way in which Adam Pittock has been able to find value and help to build this squad and really fly Port Meloburne under the radar, because they've been third for a long time now. But I don't think enough people have necessarily given them the credit that they're due, to be perfectly honest. And Avondale, on the other hand, for all the good work that Port Meloburne did in a pressing sense, Avondale just looked so disjointed. Like, the comparison or the contrast could not have been more stark. Port Meloburne, when they were winning the ball back, there was always a runner nearby. There was always someone to play a bounce pass to if a player received with back to goal. Like, they were working as such a unit. Whereas Avondale, the amount of times Joey and I during the game remarked that Liam Boland was a good 10, 15 metres away from his front line was quite remarkable. I mean, Avondale are a side who over the last few seasons haven't really changed too much. They've added a few pieces here and there. They brought a few players in and out. But for the most part, the core of this team, who, let's not forget, one of the reasons they're in the situation they're in is because they have been ravaged by injury and illness this season. Only 3 players have played more than 20 times in the campaign, and a lot of those players are key players through the spine who have missed minimum 3 games this year. It is remarkable to see a team who have kept that course so consistently look as disjointed as they did. They could barely string a pass together in this game. They went into the halftime. I would love to have been a fly on the wall for Zoran Markovski's halftime team talk. I'll tell you who I wouldn't have liked to be, a player, because I think it would have been a frosty one.
Oh, absolutely.
A frosty one. Anyway, they came back out of the second half. They looked a little bit more re-energized, but then they were given a massive, massive route back into the contest. It was George Mells given a straight red card for just a really bad sort of studs into the midriff of Yusuf Ahmed, and it was a from my angle at least a very justified red card. And as you would expect, Avondale begin to dominate the ball, and you kind of thought then, well, Port Melbourne maybe for all their dominance in the first half perhaps deserved a second goal, and it might come, the fact that they didn't get it might come back to haunt them with Avondale playing a good 30 minutes with an extra man. But Port Melbourne did a great job of getting into defensive shape. Obviously, all their press work had to go out the window because you can't press with a man down. It literally just doesn't work. They held their defensive shape, and while Avondale controlled the ball, they didn't get a lot of really high-quality looks. And then, down the other end, the second goal comes for Port Melbourne. An incredible goal, really, in the context of the game. Like, the perfect counter-attacking move. Josh Wilkins, who, again, is another player who's just been added into this squad that's been building season on season for Port and has been brilliant this year, just picks out Jackson Courtney Perkins, this wonderful ball over the top. Courtney Perkins takes it in his stride, has a lot of work to do when he receives the ball on the edge of the box. And it would have been so easy in that moment for someone to blaze away, try and hit it at the near post with the left boot, but he cuts back onto his right, finds the bottom right corner, and pretty much from there, while Avondale did eventually get a goal back through Liam Boland, Port Melbourne had the game wrapped up.
Yeah.
They had two different game plans to play. One was by intention, the other one was as a result of circumstance, and I think on both occasions, Port played it absolutely perfectly. They were so good in this game, and rightly so. Adam Pittock was fist pumping when the second goal went in, fist pumping at full time. Absolutely deserved it. The second goal, it was a sucker punch, but this is what happens, and Avondale will be left to rue the cost of that defeat, both in last season and potentially there is still games left to play in what remains of this season. But yeah, big test for Port this week, because I think if there's one sort of critique you could make of them is that they have maybe not done quite as well as they would have liked against the sides above them at the moment, who are the sides they're probably going to need to beat if they want to get anything more than where they currently are, because Oakleigh swept them aside pretty easily a few weeks ago at JL Murphy, and South Melbourne did something similar at Lakeside.
Yeah, well, they do play each other on Saturday at 5:30, which could be, by any stretch, if things work out, this could be a grand final preview.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, that you would want a response in this game after the form that
I will say, though, coming off a very short turnaround, 4 days for both themselves and Avondale, I would think they're both quite vulnerable, because South Melbourne played all the way back in Saturday. They'll get a full week rest, while Port Melbourne, on the other hand, will only get the 4 days. Avondale, on the other hand, as well, we'll only get a 4-day break when they play Dandy City away.
Yeah, and
Sorry, but the beauty of this for Avondale, and this is something Avondale fans should keep in mind, because of the way the fixture works next week, no matter what happens, if they do beat Dandy City, they will be back inside the top 6, because Green Gully and Heidelberg play, and it's guaranteed that, one of those sides is going to drop points, if not both. So they do have a superior goal difference to Gully and Heidelberg as well. So if that game ends as a draw, they'll be at least in 5th.
And Nick, how good does that make the end of the season? Because we pretty much, the next fortnight, we almost have a play-in tournament going on.
Yeah,
because this Sunday, Gully are taking on Heidelberg United at Olympic Village. The week after that, Avondale have got Dandenong City this week, as you mentioned. Not an easy game.
No.
Because Dandenong City took points off them early this season, and they are fighting for their life in the competition. So they will make themselves very hard to beat. But the week after that, Avondale play Heidelberg.
Yes, they do.
If Heidelberg lose both those games, finals are done.
Yeah, and then they play Avondale have got South Melbourne
on the final day. And let's not forget, South Melbourne and they will, whether they've wrapped up the premiership or not, they will want, if they have a chance to make sure Avondale don't make the finals, they will absolutely be going hell for leather in that game.
One thing to keep in mind as well, Avondale still have to play their Australia Cup round of 16 game interspersed in here as well, as does Bentley, as does Oakleigh, as does potentially Green Gully and Heidelberg if they do win tonight. Just on that, in terms of Avondale versus Dandy City, that is going to be a big game on Saturday at 4:45. We'll go into that game and preview that a little bit later, but Dandy City as well, of course, obviously 2 points off the pace. Let's move to Monday night, Lachie. Let's talk about the other huge game in terms of final shaping contest between two teams who had a good week last week, because they both, got through to the round of 16 in the Australia Cup. Bentley Greens taking on Oakleigh. Bentley 3-2 winners. They're in some good form right now, hitting their straps at the right point of the season, while Oakleigh now 2 losses in a row in the league against South Melbourne and against Bentley Greens. Both of those coming now on the road. They haven't been at Jack Edwards Reserve now in quite some time. They do return to their home comforts on Friday, but they were made to work for it. I'll tell you what, and Bentley were sensational on Monday. Lachie was lucky enough to be there for that game.
I was lucky enough to listen to you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that very much. That's very nice of you, mate. I appreciate that. This was a very good game. Very fun game.
These are the things when you work in radio, these are the things you say to keep your co-host.
Exactly.
Maintain a harmonious relationship.
Exactly.
Even if you don't mean it, these are just the things that you say.
Yeah, I know. Well,
just keep your co-host up and about.
If you too. Anyways, down at Kingston Heath, Monday night. Good turnout for a Monday night, I thought, between obviously two teams, quite a geographical rivalry in Melbourne Southeast, considering two proud Greek clubs down in that pocket of, Greek and Cypriot. Yes, I know. Had to make sure I get that correct. But yes, Bentley and Oakleigh. Obviously, Bentley shot out to that fast lead through Lucas Derrick. Ajak Riak was sensational, I thought, all game, but a really good assist to set it up for Lucas Derrick. Bentley came out of the blocks and really spooked Oakleigh, it looks like, and that defence, which I've got to say about in Oakleigh's defence and about their defence,
literally
defence of their defence, they defended as well as they could considering the injuries they had. Now, they only had one fit centre-back in Aaron Williams, who is not the tallest of centre-backs, going against Ajak Riak. Oliver Kubalay filled in at centre-back. Mario Barcia started in midfield. For the whole game, they defended with some of the challenges, especially in the second half, that they were making on Riak, on Derrick, on Peyton Andrews. Every time that Bentley Greens would break forward, they were desperate. They made some huge challenges because Bentley off the break were very, very dangerous, and Oakleigh looked like they were going to concede in bucket loads. But in the second half, Oakleigh were able to gain a bit of an ascendancy towards the end of the second half when Joe Knowles was able to get involved. It was good, though, actually, to have him back in a league setting after, not playing against South Melbourne and getting him back for the Australia Cup. Corey Sewell then straight after halftime, what a goal that was. I got to say, that volley was just sensational, and you don't see Corey Sewell scoring too often. Whenever I think about Corey Sewell, he probably doesn't want to be reminded of this. It does remind me of back his time at Bulleen when he used to have the sideshow Bob afro, and he scored a famous own goal against Avondale at the Venator Club, and he just basically kicked it into his own net when he tried to clear it. And there was a famous, meme that went around on NPL Victoria memes, which I have a bit of a chuckle about now. But he did it, obviously, brilliant goal, got it to 2-0. Mario Barcia pulled one back. Another really nice finish from outside the box to get Oakleigh back in it. But the moment of the game, Lachie, for me, was Christian Cavallo. His 22 minutes plus added time, returned to league football, coming off the bench and scoring the third. He was all action, energy everywhere. Great to see him back after 16 months on the sidelines. Obviously signed from Dandy City, where he was last year, and he had that sickening knee injury. Great to see him back and great to see him scoring. Then, of course, Joe Guest pulling one back late. But Bentley, as a whole, very, very, very good performance. Ken Kraliki, Lachie, we were talking about him so highly on the Twitter Spaces last week after he scored the winner against Broadmeadow. He was sensational, just all action, Energizer Bunny in the middle of the park, non-stop running, along with Danny Kim and Tom Strickland. They were great all game. Chris Drewster's got a rare start. Got his first start, I believe, now since returning to Bentley, or his second?
No, I think he started last week as well against Dandy Thunder.
Okay, all right. Stand corrected.
But he was still good.
Obviously, he was cup-tied in the Australia Cup as well, so he wasn't able to play, but he was getting stuck into Anthony Pantasopoulos on that far side the entire game. They had a nice little war going on. Payne Andrews was obviously rested, but in the end, big win for Bentley. Oakleigh's defence for me, though. Now, they should be getting some players, well, at least one player back before finals in Oscar Dillon from a hamstring injury, but they don't have Jacob Aliopoulos. They won't have Hamish Miller back in time as well. Oh. And Hamish Miller is still a bit of a 50-50, but leaning towards more unlikely. I think it'll depend on how deep they can go in finals. But defensively, especially playing off the break, they were very, very easy to cut through. If it wasn't for those desperate challenges from Williams and Kubalay, it could have been a lot worse. So for Oakleigh, it's back to the drawing board. Going forward, they still looked really good. They looked really dangerous. They forced some good saves out of Pierce Clark. But at the end of the day, Bentley their work in transition was sensational all game, and that midfield was just ticking over. For me, another question mark, I think, of Chris Taylor's side is the lack of squad rotation. And I think it's going to catch up with them.
That was the question. Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. Are we already seeing it catch up with them now? Because as I said, we saw Avondale come back from their away trip in the Australia Cup, and while it was a comfortable victory for them, they looked worse for the travel potentially. I mean, it's only one round of the Australia Cup, but obviously both these sides played. One played away, one didn't. One looked maybe slightly off colour, the other didn't.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating because you looked at that bench at the start of the season for Oakleigh, and it was, while not quite as good as South Melbourne's bench, there was still some serious.
I mean, Chris Lucas, Nick Nyagorian, Scott Lockhead, they had the start of the season.
Yeah, and then the rotation between someone like a Decker or a Daniel Clark.
Yeah.
There was some serious assets on there, but that has kind of fallen away just a little bit with all of these injuries, with some departures. I'm actually surprised that Chris Taylor didn't try Ryan Losty at Central.
Yeah, he didn't even come on
in central defence for this game, because we know that in his time at the Eastern Lions, he played pretty much every position except for goalkeeper, but quite a few times in the centre of defence. I wouldn't be shocked maybe this week against the Melbourne Knights if that's something that Chris Taylor experiments with, but we know that Chris Taylor and the word experiment don't necessarily go along or get along very well with one another. Yeah. So it's a difficult problem for Chris Taylor to fix, because injuries are not necessarily an easy fix for other than sort of praying for someone to recover faster. But he's got to make some sort of change. He's got to figure out a new balance, because he doesn't have any other option. And what is he going to do? That will go some way to deciding how they will see out this season. But great result for Bentley, and a lot of players ticking into pretty nice form at the right time of the season. And as you said, to see Christian Cavallo come back and score his goal, he could be just a real asset for them at the end of this season.
It's like a mid-season signing for him. He's just been on their books quietly for the entire time, and we just were aware of. I mean, he was playing under 23 football. He's slowly worked his way back, and it's great to see him back out there and just playing, which is just sensational. Obviously, Bentley as well were without Ben Carrigan, so George Lambatorides played at the heart of the fence. He was good alongside Jack Webster. Jack Webster, just sensational all game. I mean, nothing new from him in terms of what he can do, and he set up the goal. Well, he played almost the hockey assist to Ajak Riak that got the ball into Lucas Derrick for the opener. So good signs for Bentley as they go to Paisley Park on Saturday night against Altona, a game they'll certainly fancy themselves in against an Altona team that aren't winning or getting anything at the moment, while Oakleigh Friday night football against Melbourne Knights. So that's a good segue, Lockie, because let's talk about Melbourne Knights. News coming out of the club yesterday, a bunch of resignations last night, headlines by their coach Steve Bebic. A sign of I'm trying to think of the right word here, Lockie. Bit of turnover in the offseason, a bit of a rebuild almost, with some fresh eyes coming in, because it's not just him going, it's the assistant coaches, it's director of football.
No, team manager,
sorry.
So
they've obviously, cleaned out the coaching stuff. Well, it's been a bit of it's been resignations. But Melbourne Knights, after losing against Dandy Thunder on Friday night, a heartbreaking loss for them in the last minutes for the last second penalty. But, the writing's been on the wall now for Steve Bebic. We spoke about it a few weeks ago, but he's departed. And now Melbourne Knights go into an off-season where they've got to start asking questions about, who takes over. Can they get back to their former glory? Because Melbourne Knights not being in the finals, Lockie, quite a disappointing year yet.
They have missed the final. Well, in all of the years of the NPL Victoria, they have missed the finals more often than not. I think
which is pretty crazy.
I don't think they made finals since. It might have to get you to double check this one for me, but I don't think they've made the finals since 2015. I think, which was the year that they won the Doherty Cup. It might even have been 2014.
2015 was the last year they made finals. Actually, no, sorry, 2017. No, that's a promotion relegation playoff.
Yeah.
Yep, 2015.
Against Andy Sid.
And since then, they have not finished higher than 9th in a full season completed, because last year they finished 8th in the suspended season.
And look, Nick, you talk about a rebuild, but are they going to even have that chance? Because let's not forget, we still are a chance of having a national second division in this country. Melbourne Knights will feel, given their historical stature, that they are at the front of the queue. But you have to be honest, their actual performances, and in many cases this year, and I have been to a few Knights games this season, And look, fans are allowed to vote with their feet. I can understand that. But if you're trying to put a down payment in to make your case for a national second division rather than just expecting to walk in, they haven't really made an amazing case this year. I mean, you can compare them with the other three most likely sides in Heidelberg, Preston and South Melbourne. Well, South Melbourne haven't necessarily had the crowds quite in the way they would have wanted, but they're getting the results. They're clearly showing that improved performance as they look to push for that sort of thing. Preston have had the results, albeit in the NPL 3, but they've certainly had the crowds. And I think Heidelberg have done okay in terms of crowd numbers this season, and they've certainly built. They're probably going to be a finals team. Yep. They've been, put it this way, they've been much better than their competitors in Knights, and they have signed also as well, Heidelberg, some serious players that are capable of taking that step up. So what kind of rebuild or steps forward are involved for the Melbourne Knights here very much depend on what their actual, be it national or state level future even looks like. But in terms of this managerial change in the context of the game, it kind of felt like another familiar story for Melbourne Knights. And maybe one of the reasons that this decision has taken so long to come to pass, despite the continued malaise of Melbourne Knights this season, is because it was another game where Melbourne Knights were sort of in it. They weren't playing all that badly. They just weren't playing really well. And they went behind. They got back into the contest late. Dylan Murnane scoring a goal in the 84th minute before they give away, Taylor Shrivers gives away a silly penalty, and I've praised him quite a lot since he's come in, but he got the decision to make the slide tackle there wrong. I think he could have stood his ground, and then Dennis Yildiz scores that 90th minute winner from the spot. But they were in the game throughout. They weren't playing badly. They just didn't play incredibly, and they haven't played incredibly all season. And so at a lot of the times when teams they've been in close contests with have been able to pull results out of the bag, they haven't really. The only time they were really able to do that was against South Melbourne, when Gian Albano pretty much put the team on his shoulders. And even in that game, they were second best by a country mile. So I think maybe that's why this decision has taken so long to happen, because there has clearly been signs that they're not a million miles away, but you can't just keep on. You can only hold on to a manager for such a long time for reasons of promise. At some point along the line, they have to start delivering results. And unfortunately for Steve Bebic, who is still a manager that I think can achieve something, can be a good play at a decent or manager at a decent level, he wasn't able to deliver that. Maybe the job was, as Josh was musing to us earlier today, Josh Parrish, I should say, Mr. Preston himself, maybe this was a big job for him slightly too soon. But
Potentially,
I think, to be honest, you have to say that this is the right call. Melbourne Knights, whether the timing of it is right or not, it's the right call, because, he's obviously been involved in the building of this squad. And I do think some of the players that have come in this season haven't really delivered, particularly in midfield. Like I have struggled to work out what it is that Melbourne Knights are trying to do when they have the ball in possession. The balance of their midfield, they've been lacking really an out-and-out sort of 10 presence in that area all season. They just seem to be insistent on playing like a trio of pretty nondescript number sixes, with Anthony Giselle there, who can create something but often playing quite deep. It never feels like, after a promising few games to start the year, that Bebic was ever able to figure out those issues. And the biggest problem is they were with players that he was involved in bringing in. So, some real serious soul-searching going into this off-season.
Big question marks
for Melbourne Knights. I'll be interested to see how interim head coach Ben Shuri goes to see out the season, but also the departure of Mark Ivkovic is huge as well, because he was team manager at Melbourne Knights for quite some time. So that's a significant departure. And I don't know with the Knights. I don't know. I really like Knights. On and off the pitch, there's a lot of good things about this football club, but they need more.
They do.
Their fans need more. If they're going to be a national club again, they need to deliver more than they've shown. They can't just take their historical stature for granted because it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like at the end of the day, you got to start getting results on the board. It's been too many years of mediocrity, to put it bluntly. And hopefully from here, it's only going to, I guess, go up from here because it's been a tough few years for Melbourne Knights. So they have 4 more games remaining. They take on Oakleigh away on Friday. Dandy Thunder, on the other hand, Lachie, good win for them. They stay in the hunt.
Still a mathematical chance,
Still
Nick.
a chance, and they've still got that very, very handy run home, taking on St Albans this week. It's a big win for them. They're 7 points outside with 3 games to go. It's going to take something special, but with teams playing each other inside that little race,
Taking points off each other.
you
as well,
never know.
crucially.
You never know what could happen along the way. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on as the weeks roll on. Lachie, just running through some of the other games this weekend, because obviously we had a game postponed between Eastern Lions and St Albans, which I guess, that game will be played in the catch-up round next week.
Yes, so that'll be
on the Friday night. The same. It'll be on the 5th. It's already locked in on the 5th of August against Eastern Lions. The same night Melbourne Knights play Green Gully in that rescheduled game at Knight
becomes
Stadium.
quite an important game for Gully too.
Yeah, so St Albans, of course, in that game against Eastern Lions, they do need to win that game to sort of just, keep a bit of a gap.
And they had no choice but to call this game off. Really, there was a big patch of sand down the touchline on the grandstand side at Churchill Reserve. I mean, the linesman couldn't run on that side, which was one of the big problems. That St Albans tried to ask the linesman to swap onto the other side, so he wasn't using it, but that would have still left a massive pit of sand, which that wasn't there when they arrived. There was a big mud pit, but their solution was to put the sand on top during the game.
Which almost made it worse.
That's secondhand information that I'm getting.
Yeah.
They played the 21s game on the second pitch, and that game was called off at halftime. So pretty much because of the weather, and this is not the fault of St Albans necessarily, they couldn't play on either pitch. Neither of the pitches were up to standard. And the issue is, we're not exactly getting away from winter and rain too soon. I wonder how quickly that pitch is going to turn around, because that's not easy. Maybe they'll just relay some turf, but no guarantee. I'll be interested to see what happens there.
We'll see what happens, because St Albans, they play Dandenong Thunder this weekend away, so it gives them about a week, and Eastern Lions are playing Hume City, which is going to be a really big game, Lachie, because we do know that Hume, on the other hand, after their 2-0 loss against Green Gully, are still only 2 points clear of Dandy City inside the relegation battle. Green Gully, on the other hand, though, big 3 points. They're obviously playing Wollongong United tonight in the Australia Cup, but a good little bit of confidence for them. They've just kind of, solidified their spot for the time being inside the top 6. They've still got that game in hand against Melbourne Knights, but a handy 3 points.
Well, and look, it was a great performance for them. They got all the work that they needed to do done inside the opening 45 minutes of this game, and Gianluca Iannucci played really, really well. He got the assists for both goals, one off the corner ball, nice little header for Luke Adams. Good to see him get a goal, and then another assist this time for Josh Hope, who brilliant finish on the edge of the box.
Absolutely.
Actually, not dissimilar to the goal we saw Luca Tavia score last night. Actually, both kind of the same in the way they blasted it into the top left corner from outside the box. So, look, with the travel coming up for Gully, they did everything they needed to do. They had the result wrapped up by halftime. They saw out the second 45. I guess the big question for them is now that they travel to Wollongong tonight, or yesterday, or 3 days ago, whenever you're listening to this on the podcast, if you are listening on podcast.
On Wednesday,
yes.
or Tuesday.
What kind of team comes back? Because if the evidence of the weekend showings from Oakleigh and Avondale are anything to go by, we might see maybe a little slump on the way back.
No,
even if they are playing an Illawarra Premier League side.
Potentially. Travel does catch up with teams, and they are taking on Heidelberg. The beauty is Heidelberg are also playing tonight. It's just that Heidelberg are playing here.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference. And obviously, but Heidelberg have a much tougher opposition. So maybe Green Gully could dare I say it, maybe give a couple players a bit of a rest.
Oh, regardless, it'll be a colossal game.
They should still get the job done.
What a week of foot. This is there's never been a better. If you've never been to Olympic Village, and I'll hold my hand up and say I'm going there for the first time tonight.
That's why we've got to hurry up.
There has literally never been a better week to go to Olympic Village for the first time.
Absolutely. And on the other hand, Hume, another 2 losses in a row for them. Just can't get out of this sort of, rut they're in over these last 2 games after some positive results, but they're just stuck in that scrap at the moment with Dandy City, because it's like Dandy City haven't shown anything, especially against Heidelberg, to suggest that they're going to potentially get out unless they beat Avondale. But Hume, on the other hand, just can't seem to build the buffer or put St Albans or Altona under more sort of pressure as well.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the caveat to that is that they've played 2 difficult sides in the past 2 weeks. They were super competitive against Heidelberg the week before. That might have taken a bit out of them, but they've got the Eastern Lions coming up.
They have to win that
most important game of the season. Yes, it would be good to give yourself a better chance of solidifying your place in the competition next season by getting an upset win over a bigger team, but even more important than that is winning the games that you should win. They simply can't afford to drop this result.
Throw a scenario at you, Lachie. Imagine this time next week we come in with wins for Hume, Dandy City, and losses for Altona and St Albans. We could have Dandy City on 20 points, Hume on 22, Altona and St Albans on 23 heading into the final 2 games of the season.
It could actually. I mean,
that's going to be a bloody crazy fortnight.
Would be a remarkable turn of events. I mean, it's not inconceivable that Altona and St Albans playing Greens and Thunder respectively could lose both those games. But if Dandy City do get the upset,
oh boy,
God, it's going to get tight.
Yeah,
and I can't believe we're saying that.
And one out of those 3 teams, unfortunately, has to go down. Eastern Lions obviously already down, but one of them has to.
I'm actually feeling like
bit sick.
A pit in my stomach just thinking about it. I can only imagine what it would be like to be any of those 4 teams right now.
Well, talking about Dandy City, 5-1 loss at Heidelberg on Sunday. Heidelberg just way too good. Just absolutely steamrolled them, especially in the second half after they opened the scoring. And then from there, too good. Customary win for them. I think they're just in some sensational form at the moment. They're timing their run, in my opinion, at least to perfection. And it bounced back after that slight blemish against Port Meloburne, 2 wins on the bounce.
Yeah, and great for them to be having all these games at Olympic Village as well to end the season.
They were on the road for a while.
They were on the road for a while, but I think the next 3 games, including the Australia, or not including the Australia Cup, are at home for them, because I'm pretty sure the Avondale game is at Olympic Village too.
Yeah, it is. So and Eastern Lions away in the last game.
It's like a festival of football at Catalina.
I tell you what, that fan who does running up and down the sidelines, he would be getting the steps up. He'd be getting the K's into the legs.
It's a pinging pedometer.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing him in action.
Yeah, some great performances in this game as well. I thought Kane Shepherd was really good scoring and a really nice assist for the 5th goal as well, I think. And Owen Ashton, speaking of assists.
Oh, yeah.
3 for him in this one. Some brilliant set-piece deliveries. And out of nowhere, he'd be up there in the assist charts, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, Kane Shepherd now 4 goals off Harry Sawyer in the Golden Boot ranking. Lock. He's only 1 behind Wade Decker now.
And you'd back him to get at least 1 against Avondale too.
You'd back him to maybe score maybe a goal a game. I'll tell you, Harry Sawyer, keep it on that, mate. You got to start, banging in a couple more goals.
We know that Wade Decker's probably good for 1 more hat-trick.
Wade Decker could win it in 1 game. He could have like a 5-goal buffer going into the final game of the season and do it in 1 game. On that note about Harry Sawyer, South Melbourne 2-0 winners against Altona Lachie. Again, just quite a customary win for them. Took care of business relatively easily. They will be without Benjiba this week after he was sent off. So that's a bit of a disappointment for them. But goals to Langlar and Jake Marshall inside the first half put the game away, and that's another loss for Altona. But it's another 3 points for South Melbourne, who are now a win away, or really 2 points away from wrapping up the Premiership.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to get it done against a local rival, the sort of battle for...
the battle of the CBD?
Yeah, the battle of, just like slightly outside the battle of the
CBD beaches. Who has the better beach, South or Port Melbourne?
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy game for them to win. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the game ends as a draw. I think Port will make themselves very hard to beat. They're also missing George Mells, of course, because he'll miss through his red card. But yeah, I mean, they only need 2 more points to end out the season. They're absolutely going to get it. They will be premiers, if not this week, but the next or the week after. So, and you can't really argue that
They don't
Consistency of results, they don't deserve it.
They do deserve it. I mean, they've been brilliant all season. It's been a sensational renaissance. If there's one team that Melbourne Knights should be taking notes from, it's definitely South Melbourne.
And that's now 6 straight losses for Altona Magic. 2 goals scored in that time, scoreless on 4 occasions. Ugly. It is ugly.
And Altona, as you mentioned, Bentley Greens, Melbourne Knights, St Albans in their last 3. So 2 games.
That St Albans game could actually end up being really important.
Huge.
When I think
that will be a 0-0 draw. You
honestly,
do know that.
Just when I think the old handshake game, just let's relegate Dandy City together. Yeah, nice.
Or relegate Hume or something like that against that last game. But yes, so that rounds up last weekend's action of NPL. Obviously, 3 more games to go. We'll go into the preview in just a second. But Lachie, let's go down a tier. Because I think between the two of us, we can both say we have a very strong vested interest in NPL 2, considering your association with Langwarrin, my association with Bulleen. We'll talk about the results, but it feels like in a way talking about the results is kind of redundant if we don't talk about what we found out yesterday.
Yes.
Now, we got word. We got word from an anonymous source on Monday night that Pascoe Vale would be awarded a win against Brunswick City for an earlier game. Now, from my understanding, Lachie, it was an administration error from Brunswick City that has essentially handed 3 points to Pascoe Vale in that game. So they've been awarded a 3-0 win. So
initially they had, just to confirm, they had 1 point.
Yep, it was a draw.
Game. Now they've got 3, so they get an extra 2 points on the table.
Yes. The other one, which I am yet to confirm exactly the reasons why, Manningham versus Werribee earlier this season, which Manningham won at Petty's Reserve, has now been reversed to a Werribee win. From my understanding, I don't know exactly why. I'm just going to double check.
But it has happened.
It was a draw. Yeah, it was a win. So that has now been rewarded a 3-0 win. Initially, Manningham won that game 2-1 only a matter of weeks ago. Now, we can only assume that it might be something similar to warrant a similar punishment. We're not going to make entire assumptions and come to any sort of conclusions here.
It could be anything, really.
But when we find out the exacts, we'll bring that to you. But what it has done after the weekend's action has opened up a massive... We talk about a blockbuster finish to the NPL, the first year of NPL action, but the NPL 2 season, Lachie. And Lachie, I've been fantasy booking this ending to this NPL 2 season.
I've seen your beautiful minding, like a Rain Man. I have handwritten notes.
I have been, what I do is, Lachie, I sit down in my study, I start playing Hans Zimmer, just quietly in the background, and I start doing some work because I want to create.
Sounds fun. When can I join?
Lachie, if you want to join, mate, all you got to do is ask. All I got to say is, mate, all I want to see is I want it to go to the final day and I want to have the top 5 teams basically all in it to get promoted. And it is possible. Now, I'm not going to run you through the permutations because I don't have my scrapbook with me with all the notes. Probably can pull up the picture I've sent in the group chat many a times. But anyways, in terms of what's done for the table, so Pascoe Vale were on 36 points and in 4th. Now they're 3rd on 38 points, leapfrogging Brunswick Juventus, who still have that game in hand against Kingston. But at the other end of the table, Werribee are now on 18 points and are a tie on points. You right?
Yeah, I'm all good.
And of course, what's meant for Brunswick City is they've now fallen back to 18 points. And Manningham have fallen back to 21 points. Is that we have a 4-way tie with teams on 18 points. Langwarrin, Kingston, Brunswick, Werribee. Brunswick are only out of the bottom 2 on goals scored right now. Kingston are only a goal clear of Werribee, but Langwarrin's much superior goal difference of 11 plus goals has them well and truly out. But Manningham, who are playing spoiler to everyone, Lachie, they've suddenly been thrusted back into the relegation battle. They're only 3 points clear with 3 games to go. So it's going to be a blockbuster finish to this season. But looking back at last week's results, which when you put into context, it is a massive, especially for Pascoe Vale, it's a massive result because Pascoe Vale beat North Geelong, who are first, 5-1 at CB Smith Reserve on Saturday night. They absolutely annihilated
that is remarkable.
them. It was an incredible win for them. It's a massive win for their season. Musta Danagic scoring a double. Harris as well hitting the score sheet. Nick Georgopoulos as well. Foster Hasai. And they were down 1-0 through a goal from Salvatore early in the piece.
But then from that point on, Alex Cobo's side just put the foot down. They got the job done. They have got a massive 3 points. When you look at some of the other results with Brunswick, Juventus beating GV Suns 2-0, Moreland City beating Manningham 2-1, and Bulleen beating Werribee City 2-0. Thank bloody God Bulleen finally won a game. It's made things so intriguing heading into this weekend. And because on Monday night, Lachie, Bulleen plays Pascoe Vale, which ostensibly, I am not saying Bulleen are out of it just yet. They're 8 points off with 3 games to go. But it's set up for a huge, huge game next Monday night, which for me is by far the game of the round in NPL 2 next week.
Well, it will be the streamed game of the round, if I'm not mistaken,
I'll be there.
Between Paco and FC Bulleen Lions. Yeah, I mean, Paco have got to win. There's just no other way. There's no other description. They have to win the game.
Yes.
And I mean, it would still take. There were some murmurings, I guess, with respect to North Geelong Warriors because a 5-1 loss against a team lower than you. Well, everyone's lower than you in the NPL 2 if you're North Geelong, but that's going to send some alarm bells. And there was some murmurings that after young Noah Skoko left to go overseas, and play in Europe, that that might cause a bit of difficulty for him because of how good he was at the start of this season. Maybe we're finally starting to see that slip, but they have just been out in front, pretty much running their own race, and all of a sudden they're only 4 points away from actually losing out on the automatic, on just promotion.
Yeah, it was, for one point, it was thinking they're going to win the league.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So we've gone pretty much from having 2 teams or 3 teams looking sort of the most likely to now it's 4.
Throw a blanket over these teams.
You could almost open it up to team number 5. And then down the other, it was like a 3-horse race for that final promotion relegation spot. Of course, Goulburn Valley already relegated. But
no, not yet.
Well, playoff relegation spot. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. But all of a sudden, that other playoff relegation spot has been blown wide open because you have 4 teams equal on 18 points. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, because Kingston Langwarren's goalless draw on Monday night just kept everyone right in it. And
they've played 3 games since Kingston got relegated. 2-0 all draws, 1-1 all. If you want to watch a game of football in the NPL 2, do not watch Kingston Langwarren.
Lachie, you in terms of NPL 2, you probably saw the best. You saw the best brace of the weekend.
Yeah, I just quickly, Nick. I just looking at the runs home for those bottom 4 sides as well. Langwarren played Goulburn Valley, Brunswick, and Manningham. So
that's very, very handy.
Huge.
Those
are all games that they need to win. For Kingston, not nearly as easy. They do play Goulburn Valley Suns in 2 weeks' time, but either side of that, North Geelong and FC Bulleen Lions on the final day. Tough for them. Brunswick City play Brunswick Juventus, Langwarren, Goulburn Valley Suns. So that Langwarren game is going to be crucial for those 2.
The one game actually, you're missing with Kingston, they've got to play Brunswick Juventus as well.
Yes, that's
game
true.
In hand, yes.
That's true. They've got the game in hand. And then for Werribee, it's tough. Moreland City, Northcote City, Brunswick Juventus to close out the season. So I would still say that Werribee are the most likely team to finish.
It could be so unlucky for them.
In that last spot in the bottom 2, but it's anyone's game. But yes, as you were saying
at the Boonah
before,
special.
I was at the Jonathan Boonah show down at Dunstan Reserve on Saturday afternoon. Such a strange game because Brunswick were actually really competitive in this fixture. They had a lot of really promising signs with the ball at their feet, but just not enough cut through. They were missing their equal top goal scorer before kickoff, which was Lucas Oliveira, a sort of focal point as a striker. And I think without him, they just really lacked cut through when they got into that final third. Like possession and pretty passing between the penalty boxes is all well and good, but you've got to provide something up the other end, and they just didn't do that. Meanwhile, Jonathan Boonah was just creating them out of thin air right before the halftime. In a half, by the way, that Northcote was second best, and I think Andy Schoolos would admit that if we spoke to him now. Jonathan Boonah just whips out this free kick on the edge of the box, but sort of like at the apex of the box on the left-hand side. So on a tight angle, I think it takes a deflection on the way through, but it is undoubtedly his goal past Jordan Gifkins. And then, not satisfied with scoring directly from a free kick, 75 minutes into the game, it was a contested header, I think, between Costa Apostolopoulos and a Brunswick player, and it just bounces in front of Jonathan Boonis, about 35 yards from goal. And you know, when you've watched enough football, Nick, you develop that sixth sense where you're like,
he's going to shoot.
He's going to hit that.
Yeah.
And boy, did he hit that. Jonathan Boonis with the outside of the boot from 30 yards, hits it on the half volley. It's such a weird goal because he didn't strike it hard. He didn't hit it direct or anything. It was kind of a hit and hope. It was a big looping, like up and under kind of half
And he
volley.
hit it perfectly.
And Jordan Gifkins, to be fair, the keeping wasn't great from Jordan Gifkins. He kind of let it go through his arms. But I think he was deceived. I don't think he was expecting it to dip as much as it did. And he flapped at it, but Jonathan Boonis had the last laugh. He made it 2-0. Jesse Macaronis made stoppage time interesting. Finally, Brunswick got a breakthrough with really their only good penalty box chance in the game. On the 90th minute, Jesse Macaronis scoring his 7th of the season. But yeah, Brunswick had dominance in terms of possession play, but they just didn't have enough cut and thrust to win the game. And as I said, on the other end, Boonis was just pulling goals out of his rear end.
Very happy addition
remarkable.
of Cottsy's corner this week.
And also shout out to Jonathan Boonis' celebration for his first goal, where he ran over to celebrate with interim manager Andy Skoulos, who now has 3 straight wins to start his tenure. And the ground gave way beneath his feet. So he slide tackled his own manager.
Well, he's a big boy, Jonathan Boonis. And right now, Northcote, they've had a good end to this season. As you mentioned, 3 wins under their new boss, only 2 points behind Bulleen. So a very positive end to the year for them.
Yeah, they could end up finishing ahead of Bulleen, which is crazy to think about.
Which is unbelievable considering Bulleen
beat them 7-1.
Yeah, 7-1. So this weekend in NPL 2, Lachie, it all kicks off on Friday night. Doubleheader, Brunswick Derby. Brunswick Juventus versus Brunswick City. Real implications at both ends of the table.
Wouldn't have been saying that 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be
the Brunswick Derby.
Yeah, the Brunswick Derby. Northcote City versus Manningham as well at John Kay Memorial Park. Saturday, North Geelong versus Kingston. Massive game at both ends of the table. Lang Warren versus GV Suns, which you'll be calling down at Walton Park on Langy TV at 3 p.m.
I will, yes. 3 p.m. kickoff. I'll
Massive
be there
game.
by myself, speaking myself. So please do come and join me. Ask me a few questions.
Come say hello. And then down at Wellmoney Park, a game as well. Real implications at both ends. Moreland City versus Werribee, because Moreland City's target on their back is getting bigger and bigger right now, and they're under enormous pressure taking on Werribee City.
Even if they win, they're not 100% safe because Brunswick have still got to play that game in hand.
A draw even this game would make things very interesting, because if Moreland City do win, well, that will mean the end of Bulleen's promotion hopes. But if Werribee could beat Moreland City or at least hold them to a draw, it'll keep Bulleen alive for one more week.
Nick, the shifting permutations are just melting my brain.
Yeah, so Bulleen take on Pascoe Vale on Monday night. That's the game of the round on NPL.tv. I will be there, so come say hello. Give us a wave. I'll be in the box. Just a nice little salute.
D'Urbano, give us a wave. D'Urbano, give us a wave.
Or maybe I'll give you a shout out through the PA. We'll see how we go. But yeah, Bulleen versus Pascoe Vale. Monday night, that's the game of the round on NPL.tv. Lachie, let's go to NPL 3 because we have our first promoted team locked in. Melbourne City's Youth Academy are up. They have locked themselves in NPL 2 for the next season. They could be one of 4 teams potentially promoted.
Because the top 2 automatic. 3rd and 4th get playoff.
So they won 4-2 at Whittlesea, which actually relegated Whittlesea in the process.
State leagues. Epping Stadium, a state League 1 venue.
Yep. And potentially a State 2 venue as well if Melbourne Victory get promoted. But anyways.
NPL 2.
NPL 2. Sorry. Melbourne City won 4-2. So they've locked themselves as one of the teams and could be joined in a matter of days by Preston Lions, who are now only up 2 points away from sealing their promotion as the second highest or potentially the first highest team in NPL 3 because
they pretty much have an NPL 3 grand final this
weekend. Yes, down at Frank. They've had to take it away from Parade College. It's too big for Parade College. Who would have thought? They're taking it to Frank Hollaham Reserve on Friday night, the home of Dandy City.
Shout out to Melbourne City recognising the box office level of this. And
because
moving it to
you
a bigger
do
venue.
Know that the Preston fans are going to rock up in numbers for
Frank
this one.
Hollaham is going to look so good with Preston travelling support.
Absolutely. And we're going to have one of our former alum, Josh Parrish, on the call on Friday night on Preston's homepage. But that's going to be an absolute ripper. Preston wins. They will go top of the league with 2 games to go. But right now, they're 8 points clear of Melbourne Victory. They defeated Western United on Friday night. Talking about a great atmosphere, Lachie. It was heaving down at BT Connor Reserve. Josh Parrish and Norm Sekalovsky on the call that game. Really good job. The two of them, Connor Bell, again scoring. He's in some form right now. And it got a bit tense towards the end there, Lachie, when Gore scored the penalty. But they were able to hang on, and I believe 2,500 fans or so that were at BT Connor Reserve went home very, very happy.
And you know what, Nick? It's probably a discussion point for an end-of-season episode of this podcast, but gee, it's funny to think that at the start of this season, so much of the conversation around Preston and potential national second division, all that sort of stuff was like, can we let them in from the NPL 3? Like, is it going to kick up a stink with the teams at the top club? I would almost say that they have made...
The most
even from the NPL 3, have made the most compelling case of any club, not just in this state, but probably in the country.
Absolutely.
The support has been literally nowhere else does that. And I think it was Teo Pellizzeri who said when he was tweeting about a photo of the crowd, if every national second division game can be like that or close to that, I can't see how it doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. Big
it makes it, Preston actually make you excited for what's to come.
Oh, absolutely. It's
not
great.
fearful. Like they energize me. They rev me up. And they could be a national team. They could be an NPL 2 team. We shall see. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, well, either way, because I mean, if it's the Champions League format, they might be both.
And say Werribee City go down. Like, do Preston field an NPL 2 side and a national side? Do Werribee get a reprieve if they go down? They get to come back up.
Well, who knows?
I don't know, but I'm glad we're having these issues.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be really exciting. I'm honestly can't wait to see what happens on Friday, Lachie, because Preston versus Melbourne City is going to be a ripper. So keep an eye on that contest. It's going to be live on Preston's Facebook page. So head over to that on Friday nights, or maybe even if you want, get down there yourself. So if you are in the southeast or you just want to make a trip down to Frank Holohan,
it's literally the best of both worlds because you get the Frank Holohan canteen.
The best
and you get the Preston crowd.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't think of anything.
It's like if I was at fantasy booking like the ultimate NPL experience. Like I was taking someone on a paid tour.
I'm kind of upset I can't go, even though I'm celebrating my own birthday on Friday.
It's like picking an all-star team, but for the off-field element.
Exactly. So just in terms of the other games, Melbourne Victory 3-0 winners against Ballarat City. North Sunshine 3-0 winners against Doveton, and Nunawading 1-1 against Box Hill. Geelong versus Springvale actually got washed out, so that game's going to be played on the 6th of August. So how that leaves things, Lachie, Victory on 35 points, Western United on 32, and it's still alive for one of those final spots in the top 4, Lachie. Nunawading 3 points behind Western United. North Sunshine only 6 points behind. They're putting a bit of a late push on the guys from North Sunshine, so that's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. But next week, along with City versus Preston Lions, or not really next week, it's this week. Box Hill versus Whittlesea on Friday night as well. Springvale taking on Nunawading City. Melbourne Victory against North Sunshine Eagles on Saturday.
Stream game as well.
Yep, that's on NPL.tv, game of the week. Well, not really the game of the week, but it's the quote-unquote game of the week. Doveton versus Geelong and Western United versus Ballarat City. Permutations for 3rd, 4th, but also for the relegation battle as Ballarat City and Springvale are kind of in a bit of a tussle for that last spot.
Well, and Springvale have got the game in hand now against Geelong, who aren't that far away either. That's going to be a big one.
I'm going to do a quick rabbit hole search here because I actually I want to have a look at who's going to be coming up to NPL 3 next season. So who's actually going to be... So will they go to North West or Northeast? Or what's the... Because it's like... Because, you got the state leagues are separate. So it'll be...
Yeah, but the NPLs aren't. So I think...
Northwest or Southeast?
Would it not be one from the top of each conference? Or they play off?
Yeah, but I think it'll be Northwest. That's where Whittlesea will go.
Oh, yeah. So no, of course.
In Northwest, just in terms of who's potentially coming up, Caroline Springs, George Cross are first, 5 points clear of Essendon Royals. Then you got Sydenham Park, Banyule and Brimbank. Sort of in a bit of a tussle, but Caroline Springs have got that bit of a gap at the moment.
Whereas I'm pretty sure the Southeast is going down to the line.
Oh, yeah.
Mornington, Malvern.
Yeah. Yep. Burundara. Beaumaris. South Springvale, Fitzroy. So 41 points Malvern, 40 points Burundara, 36 points Beaumaris, Mornington and Springvale, and 35 is Fitzroy City. And in 30 points is Casey Comets. And in last place, Masnota on 0.
Yeah, well, that's
That shows that.
I thought Golden Valley Suns were having a tough season. Jeez,
Richmond have only won one game in State League One. That's a real fall from grace. Lachie, we're almost out of time. We've got to get to Olympic Village because that game's kicking off quite soon. Let's do our predictions. Third last round of NPL action.
Can't believe we're saying that.
And
Where
obviously,
does the time go?
yeah, we're going to have the Doherty Cup the week after, and Nike FC Cup, and a couple catch-up games before we go into the last fortnight. So let's get into our predictions. Friday night at Jack Edwards Reserve, 8:30 p.m. Oakleigh versus Melbourne Knights. New coach bounce, or will we see Oakleigh get back to winning ways?
Oh, God, this is a tough one because I am someone who does skew towards the post-managerial bounce getting a surprising result. I really want to say a draw, but I think Oakleigh have been so, even a weakened Oakleigh, they've been so dominant against Knights in the games they've played each other in this season. I think the Cannons have got to win.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be shocked if there's a draw here.
3-1 Oakleigh.
Okay, I'll go 2-1. 2-1.
Okay.
Same scoreline as last time they played.
Eastern Lions, Hume City, Saturday afternoon at Gardeners Creek. Will Eastern Lions finally get a point at home? I'm going Hume City 2-0.
2-1 Hume City.
Okay. Saturday afternoon football, straight afterwards at 4:45, Dandy City versus Avondale.
I'm actually giving myself a migraine trying to the mental gymnastics of predicting.
I'm going 2-2 with this one. I reckon Dandy City gets something from this game. But they're without Steven Sapalovic. That's what I just remembered. He's suspended.
If you're not listening on the podcast, you need to go back and watch the stream and just see the consternation that has just consumed my face as I try to predict these games. I'm going
still a 2-2 even without Sapalovic.
I just think Avondale are going to respond. I think they're going to be pissed off. 3-1 to Avondale.
Port Meloburne, South Melbourne, JL Murphy Reserve. I am going a 2-2 draw.
This is without a doubt the hardest week of predictions I've ever had to do. Usually I'm so sure. I'm so bang, bang, bang. 1-1. Okay.
Saturday nights down at Paisley Park, Altona Bentley. I'm going Bentley 1-0. Just easy, 1-0.
Gee, this is a tough one as well because yes, Altona have been really bad, but last time Altona absolutely snuffed out the Greens. 0-0 draw. Greens looked a mile off it. This time I say they win 1-0.
Bentley or Altona?
Bentley.
I was going to say. Dandy Thunder versus St. Albans Saturday night down at George Andrews. I'm going Dandy Thunder 2-0. Keep their finals hopes alive for another week.
Thunder 3-1, red cards for both sides.
Okay. Sunday afternoon. Now, this is a tough one. Heidelberg versus Green Gully.
Not at all.
I'm going a 2-2 draw.
I've made this prediction a lot. I think my last 3 predictions have all been 3-2 Heidelberg for games involving Heidelberg. I'm backing it in again. I got it right one time. I've got to be right a second. 3-2 Heidelberg over the Gully.
Okay. Well, big call there, Lachie. I'm curious to see how it all works out this weekend. It's going to be a massive weekend in all 3 tiers. And we'll be back next week, back on Tuesday, I believe.
Sure, let's do Tuesday.
Let's do Tuesday. Let's see. This is our pre-show meeting. You get it live here on the show.
That usually, in most other podcasts, that'd be a Patreon exclusive. Here, we give you the Green Room talk for free.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the big thing is, obviously this week we waited until Wednesday because we wanted to find out who won the 2021 Bespoke Premiership. So here we are. We brought it to you a little bit later, but better late than never. Yes. But Lachie, time for us to say goodbye. Time for us to get out to Heidelberg. Can't wait for that one. Before we go, actually, if you're listening on the podcast, the Heidelberg win tonight. What's on the cup setometer?
Extra time. Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, Burgers 2-1. They're going to win this game.
Go Victorian football.
We'll be back next week. Missed any of it, head to the podcast. We do apologise for the technical difficulties at the start, but if you're listening on the pod, it won't be an issue for you guys. But anyways, we'll be back next Tuesday for a review of all the action and a preview of the Doherty Cup final as well. Big weekend coming up and then into the big fortnight coming up after that. And Lachie, finals are around the corner. I can feel it in the air, that nice smell of spring.
I think that's the fireworks smoke from Jack Edwards. So they're celebrating the 2021 title.
I think I can see Aki Ioannis on top of the bus as it comes into Docklands. But anyways, time for us to go. We'll be back next week here on FNR.